Why American automakers are failing in China. Do American companies miss the mark in the biggest market for cars in the world? Come with us as we try to figure out why they are having so much trouble getting traction in China. We look into all the complicated factors that make this auto battleground what it is, from cultural differences to fierce competition and geopolitical issues. That being said, why don't American cars get Chinese buyers excited? China stands out as the ultimate prize in the world of global automobile markets, which are known for their high degrees of competition. It should come as no surprise that automobile manufacturers from all over the world have their sights set on competing in this lucrative market, given the country's enormous population, fast-growing middle class, and insatiable need for automobiles. Nevertheless, despite their best efforts, American automobile manufacturers have had a difficult time gaining traction in China. So what exactly is the reason that they have not been successful in winning the hearts and wallets of Chinese retail customers? As we go deeper into the complexities of this matter, let's identify the most important aspects that are at play. As recently as 40 years ago, there was no such thing as private car ownership in China anymore. Cycling is the most prevalent mode of transportation for people who commute to work in a nation where private automobiles are still relatively uncommon. In the beginning, there was only a little amount of the automobile industry present in the country. However, China has now become the international market for automobiles that is the largest. Over the course of this period of rapid expansion, international automobile manufacturers gained significant financial gains. It is currently uncertain whether or not they will be able to remain in the country. The problems that international automakers have in China are reflected in the intense pressure that they face in the country. This circumstance may have an impact on their standing on the international stage. Multinational car manufacturers were enticed to accept stringent trade restrictions and to share their expertise with Chinese partners who were less experienced in order to enhance the capacity of automobile production. This was done in order to take advantage of the opportunity to access a market that consisted of more than 1 billion people. For a period of time, this collaboration was beneficial to both parties. Despite the fact that Chinese businesses soon caught up to multinational corporations and forced them out of business, international corporations gained more notoriety and prestige. As a result of the fact that many of the main enterprises are now privately held and are competing with one another fiercely, the market is considerably different from the state-owned industry that was first envisioned. Due to the fact that consumer preferences have shifted toward domestically produced goods, the Chinese market is distinguished by the rapid release of new models at substantially lower prices. Because of the close and personal relationships that Chinese CEOs have with their customers, regional businesses are able to maintain their dominant position in the market. Since this is the case, it will be challenging to restore influence in the Chinese market. According to the opinions of certain market analysts, worldwide businesses, particularly those based in the United States, ought to increase their efforts in spite of the present challenging circumstances. When Chinese competitors expand their operations to other countries, enterprises that do not participate in the Chinese market may be vulnerable. In Asia, Europe, and other non-continental regions, sales of automobiles manufactured in China are increasing at noteworthy rates. China has announced that it will export more than 5 million cars in 2023, surpassing Japan to take the top spot globally. China has risen from the 6th position to the 1st seed since 2020 thanks to the Why American automakers are failing in China. Do American companies miss the mark in the biggest market for cars in the world? Come with us as we try to figure out why they are having so much trouble getting traction in China. We look into all the complicated factors that make this auto battleground what it is, from cultural differences to fierce competition and geopolitical issues. That being said, why don't American cars get Chinese buyers excited? China stands out as the ultimate. According to international consulting firm AlixPartners, America, which ranked 4th in the world for car exports before 2020, came in 6th place globally last year, trailing only Mexico, South Korea, and Germany. Carlos Tavares, CEO of Chrysler parent Stellantis, stated during a virtual media roundtable on Friday, one competitor is the Chinese carmakers. This fight is going to be intense. For an international automaker like Stellantis, which operates globally, the only option is to take on the Chinese automakers head-on. There's not another option. The danger is not limited to export quantities. Chinese automakers have raised the bar for both vehicle cost and production. They are making EVs profitably and effectively, something that has eluded multinational manufacturers like America's Ford Motor and GM. They are also delivering new models at record speeds. BYD Co. has been cited by automotive experts as a shining example of China's manufacturer's ascent. Supported by the Chinese government, the business overtook Tesla as the global leader in EV sales last year. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, stated that Chinese automakers are the biggest rivals of his Texas-based business, which has a sizable plant in China. Many people believe that Tesla will rank among the top 10 automakers, with 9 Chinese automakers following behind. At the November Dealbook conference hosted by the New York Times, Musk stated, "I believe they might not be incorrect." According to The Economist, Rhodium Group estimates that BYD got roughly $4.3 billion in governmental funding between 2015 and 2020. Beijing has additionally provided subsidies to encourage the purchase of electric vehicles. BYD has figured out a formula for affordable EVs that appears to know no bounds, even after accounting for America's 27.5% tariff on Chinese-made automobiles. The BYD Seagull, a small EV with a starting price of about $11,400, would substantially undercut American EV costs at less than $15,000. During last week's Automotive Insights Symposium, Kristen Zicek, the automotive policy advisor for the Detroit office of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, stated, "This is a car that scares me. How can we reduce the cost of electric vehicles by 50%? China has completed it already." Additionally, the business is exporting more cars outside of China. According to Bernstein, outside markets made up roughly 10% of BYD's more than $3 million in sales last year, more than tripling its proportion from the start of the year. In an analyst note published last week, Eunice Lee, an analyst at Bernstein, stated, "BYD has an unparalleled cost structure and product innovation ability that stems from its high degree of vertical integration, which will enable the company to thrive in the ongoing EV race in China and abroad. We anticipate the company's focus on overseas and premium segments will support 29% compound annual growth rate in earnings through 2025, despite growing pricing pressure in China." With the support of national and local governments, for instance, at the end of the third quarter of last year, General Motors (GM) share in the Chinese market, including its joint ventures, had fallen to 8.6% from over 15% in 2015. What's happening at home in China? At the Chicago Fed's Auto Conference, Mark Wakefield, global co-leader of AlixPartners Automotive and Industrial Group, stated, "These new energy vehicle brands have become dominant. A few years ago, they held a 26% market share, rising to over 50% in 2022 and projected to reach 2/3 by the end of the decade." Furthermore, the growth has moved outside. According to Wakefield, Chinese businesses have started to grow into Mexico, Europe, and other countries. They have mostly achieved this through EVs, which analysts see as an open market for the companies, and low-cost, relatively inexpensive vehicles, some of which American manufacturers have given up on. As of September of last year, Chinese companies sold 8% of all electric vehicles in Europe. The European Union projects that by 2025, their share might reach 15%. According to the EU, Chinese EVs are roughly 20% less expensive in the European market than domestic ones. The European Union launched government backing for the industry in response to the surge of Chinese electric vehicles. Over the previous 6 years, internal combustion engine automobiles made in China have climbed from having no market share to 20% of light-duty vehicle sales in Mexico, according to Zicek of the Chicago Fed. Other than Russia, Mexico is the second biggest market for automobiles built in China, the spokesperson stated. They will eventually arrive in Mexico and be on our shores. Chinese automakers have promised for decades to start selling cars in the United States under their own brands, but none of them have been successful. Not that China doesn't compete in the US market, mind you. In addition to significant supply chain connections, a few Chinese automakers have auto brands in the United States, notably Lotus, Volvo, including the Polestar spin-off, and specialty EV manufacturer Karma. American automakers like GM and Ford either already make some cars in China or intend to do so in order to import and sell them in the United States. While Ford said last year that it would import the upcoming Lincoln Nautilus crossover from China, GM imports its Buick Envision from China to the US. However, it is now difficult for a motorist in the United States to purchase a Dongfeng, BYD, or other Chinese-made car domestically. Apart from possible legislative obstacles and acts of protectionism, some people think Chinese manufacturers could succeed in entering the American market by following the successful strategies of South Korea's Hyundai Motor and Japan's Toyota Motor. These automakers first entered the American market with accessible, reasonably priced cars, then raised the bar to improve quality and safety before branching out to more expensive models. According to Stellantis Tavares, Japanese automakers arrived in the United States in the 1970s. They had to contend with some well-known opponents for 50 years before emerging victorious in the market. There is no reason why this should not occur with the Chinese, in my opinion. Subscribe now to uncover the secrets behind American automakers' challenges in China and stay ahead of the curve in the global automotive industry.